Well, it looks like the joke is on all those who thought Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves was a 10 out of 10 movie. Either the reviewers were in on an April Fool's prank, or they were under some sort of spell. I don't know what kind of treasure the filmmakers were hoping to find, but they certainly didn't strike it with this one.
This dude loves puns. I hate it.
The honor among thieves in this movie is that they managed to pull off the biggest heist of all, getting people to think it was worth watching.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Stop it, please.
That was a 1-star review from IMDb. Hello and welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I'm Ryan, joined as always by Andrew.
Salutations.
And Steven.
Hello there.
And a very special guest, just like a drow crawling out from the Underdark, Joel is back.
I'm back. Oh, Lord.
And in this episode, we'll be reviewing Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. But first, we're going to go around and talk about our experience with D&D and maybe some stories that go along with it. Who wants to kick us off?
I think the guest should always start.
Okay.
Well, that's rude, but okay.
I'll take it. So I've been a dungeon master since high school, so about 15 years on
Yeah,
and
date
off.
yourself. Let's go.
A little bit. Let's go.
A couple decades, huh? No big deal.
Let's do it. And early on, one of my most interesting experiments as a dungeon master was in using music to shape the minds and choices of my players. So whenever there came up a situation in one particular game where a moral decision needed to be made, I would play dark and dour music intending to influence the direction of thought in my players, particularly my younger brother. And it had tremendous effect to the point where to this day, if I put that music on, he goes, uh-oh, he's looking for a bad decision.
You just walk around with a Bluetooth speaker and like put it in the room and start playing it at low volumes to just increase it.
Which, it is funny because when I was trying to listen to the soundtrack for the movie prior to this, just to hear it again, if you just type in D&D soundtrack, you get a whole bunch of people who have made up their own tracks to play during
It's
games.
a really big part of setting the stage.
It really is. Yeah, it didn't occur to me. And it's like, wow, this is everywhere.
So what did you play the music through?
Just like we would play in person, and so I just like have my CD player and whatnot.
A boombox, he put it on his shoulder. He'd come down the hall.
So the actual track that I used was Padme's Ruminations from Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, nice. That's a great track.
Got the Star Wars
Would you have
already.
like a mix CD, or would you like be thumbing through like one of those albums of CDs? He's about to make a bad decision. Hold on, wait.
No, I would have entire sessions that it was just that track on
He had to get a 6 CD changer.
Yeah, I was going to say, he just carries the 6 CD changer with him wherever he DMs.
All right, who else wants to go?
I'm curious about what Steven,
get in here.
So I'm reaching way back, going all the way back to middle school, right? So this is early 90s. So we're still kind of a bit, D&D is not popular. It is, in fact, a bit still gripped by the satanic panic, right?
Yeah, from the mid-'80s,
From
which
the
is
mid-'80s.
hilarious.
Yeah, it's still, that's where we're going with this. That's where we're going.
Oh, boy.
So one of my friends and I had I don't remember. He had the book. And, of course, we're like 12. So these books are like, $50, right? So the fact that he has one, he brought it to school. Ooh. So we were just going through and looking at the different items and like kind of plotting out, what would be cool to have? I think the thing that sticks with me, right, is it's like a replenishing peanut. So like every day you just got a pound of peanuts. So it's one of these things that's like incredibly abusable where it's like, so we have this adventuring party, but they're actually, now they just run a roast peanut stand.
Yeah.
And they,
they
sell,
just make money. Yeah.
Right. So we were hypothesizing these kind of stupid things you could do with this, right?
Or you could like just hold the bag upside down and clip it to a tree. So every day a pound of peanuts falls down onto the floor.
Yeah.
Or it could be like over a river so that you come back in a year and there's a big dam of peanuts.
or you just attract the wildlife with it.
Yeah.
And instead of eating peanuts, you have, roast duck, right? So while we're going through this and coming up with dumb scenarios of basically ways that whatever poor kid was going to try to corral us into doing whatever story he had written out is not going to work because we're going to just be making peanuts.
Yeah.
Because I went to a Catholic middle school, here comes, and I can't.
A haven for D&D.
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me tell you, they love that thing there.
Yeah.
So here comes a nun, and I cannot remember which nun it is.
Here comes a nun.
Pretty much. And so she brings up the idea of, I feel like, this is the kind of thing where like whoever is in charge, like gets people to do bad things because they just direct them and you have to do what they say. we both kind of looked at her. We're like, we're coming up with ways to profit off of if we can trick our dungeon master into giving us a ever recharging peanut.
She goes, like I said, Satan's hand.
Absolutely, right? We're going to unpin the necessities of capitalism through magic. So yeah, that's my story. Just the general, because again, if you ever have played D&D or if you've been a DM, the horrible challenge or feeling of when your party all decides that this tree needs thorough inspection, and it's just like, please, can you just go through the door? But have we looked at the roots? Can we dig around the tree? I would like to climb the tree. Can we burn it? What kind of tree? You didn't just tell me what kind of tree it is.
I need to know the genus, and I need to know right now.
I know, yeah. Is it a flowering tree? Does it make nuts? Does it float?
It's a new tree, okay? No one knows anything about it.
So
Undiscovered species. We must research this further.
So this is actually a good segue for my story.
Go for it.
So my D&D experience is incredibly slim. I've only played one game, and it was a one-shot, one time at a bachelor party. That it was a specific campaign for the bachelor party.
An absolutely rager of a bachelor party.
Yeah, no, it was actually a ton of fun.
The strippers rolled up as NPCs.
So we're basically exploring this haunted mansion, right? Mm-hmm. And the first thing that we do is we split the party like Scooby-Doo does. And me and my friend go upstairs, and we're kind of like scrounging around this room. And when I've never played D&D before, no one told me that like when I inspect my bag, I need to actually inspect the items in the bag, not what the contents of the bag contains. So like I was like, I'm going to inspect my bags. You have a bottle of water. I don't know what kind of water that is, but it's a bottle of water.
Yeah.
So
you assume if there's any more to know about the water, they would have told you
at that moment.
Yeah. So, we're inspecting this room and kind of like searching around, and my friend opens up this box and he immediately catches on fire.
Yeah.
Andrew to the rescue.
And I'm like, I can fix this.
I got a bottle of water.
I have a bottle of water.
Yeah.
So I look at my DM and I was like, hey, I want to save my friend. I have a bottle of water. I'm going to use the water. And he kind of looks at me and he goes, you sure? And I'm like, absolutely. So I throw the water on him, and apparently it was holy water. And my friend was a fel orc, which I also did not know that I needed to like ask them what they were.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So then the holy water just kills him.
Yeah. You put out the fire by turning everything to dust.
Yes.
Yeah. The fire was preferable.
And my friend, this is like 20 minutes into the campaign.
Yeah.
Like barely, like this is like going to be like a 6-hour session.
Yeah, he's like, thanks. Now I don't get to play.
Way to go.
Luckily, our DM had planned for people to die.
Yeah.
So he had things for them to do outside of death.
Was it haunt you because he needed to just haunt you?
It was absolutely haunting me. And my friend absolutely pulled me through a mirror later, and then I died.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, it was fun, but it's one of those things. Just remember, kids, inspect your bags.
Inspect your bags.
Don't inspect your bags. Once you've inspected the bags,
inspect the items
inquire
in
about
the
the contents specifically.
Yeah.
You need to treat your bag the way that Steven's hypothetical friends treated that tree.
Yeah. And I just, like in my mind, like, I'm like, oh yeah, he would have said if it was holy water.
Yeah. Also, if your DM or GM ever asks, are you sure?
Oh, that is code.
Pause.
Yeah.
Stop.
It's not even code. It's pretty blatant. Don't do the thing you're about to do.
All right, Ryan, what about you?
Speaking of DMing, I've never actually played D&D. I've only DM'd.
How does that? Okay, so I'm curious how that works.
Yeah.
You've never played.
So I've played other RPGs.
Okay.
And I had a group of friends. I've always been interested in D&D, and I never could convince my group of friends to play.
And everyone always needs a DM.
Right.
Every time.
So the Adventure Zone comes out, which is an actual play podcast, right? And all my friends listen to it, and they're all about it all of a sudden. And they're like, hey, you're a good storyteller. Why don't you be our DM? And I'm like,
I mean, you are a good storyteller.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, guilty as charged. I'll give it a shot. But I like did so much research and like got the Dungeon Master's Guide. I'm looking at like wiki, tutorials. I'm looking at YouTube videos because I have nobody to talk to about this, and I'm just like out in the wilderness. Like I'm so nervous about it. So I keep asking them, what kind of campaign do y'all want? Like, we want just a linear story. You just tell us. We just want a relaxing every weekend. We jump on here. And this is all remote, by the way. This is all, virtual tabletop. And this is like 8 years ago. So it's before virtual tabletop was like great. It was like Roll20's early days or whatever. Anyways, I have 1,000 stories of why both those campaigns were terrible and failed. But this one is the one where I realized everybody I was playing with was actually just a bunch of murder hobos. So I prepped this like dungeon and like I wanted it to be interesting and different because I was trying to think of a way to make the encounter not just like 3 goblins.
Yeah.
Like, how do I, kick this up?
Give one of them a name so they can adopt it.
They all had weird names. One was like Craig Fist and one was like something else. Anyway,
Smorgle.
Sam Smorgle.
But then I was like, I tried to set the scene with like, so there's like these bags of rats, just bags of them out in the hallway
Like a
leading into
sack
this
of-
room.
just a sack of
of a wiggling rat. Well, they didn't know what it was. They inspected it. It's a bunch of rats, right?
Yeah.
They did it
But
properly.
like the rats were alive.
They were alive, yeah.
Oh.
And so they get into this room and there's these 3 goblins and this person they're trying to rescue or whatever. And there's these holes in the walls. And as they try to engage the goblin's like, shh, hush, hush. And they're like, what? And so they hear this skittering behind the walls. And of course, one of them's like, I'm going loud, right?
Yeah.
And so thousands of baby goblins come running out of the walls. And there's like this trough in the middle of the room, right? And like the long story short,
What
the
a
setup
nightmare.
was I was trying to make it like they feed these goblin babies, the rats, in
Sacks
this
of
trough,
rats.
right? So one of the dudes was a druid. So he wild shapes into a giant spider. And he was dragging a bag of the rats behind him into the room with us. Cause like, we may need this. And they were like, why?
You don't need a sack of rats.
Why would we need the rats? Right? So
He's like, it's my time.
they do a few rounds of combat. They've got these goblins on the ropes, right? And he webs the main leader up. Like, so he's tied up, throws him into the trough and dumps the rats on top of him. And all the baby goblins start eating him.
Oh, man.
And again, this is like early. I didn't know how to like prep a lot of stuff. And I was like, this is the only guy that has any information about everything else they're about to do. They're about to waste this dude.
Turns out after this that they discovered that this goblin was very literate and he wrote out all of his letters.
Journal.
I was in my head going like, okay, maybe there's a desk drawer in this cave. There's a message here. So
Smarkle's journal in the back.
This is where I was like freaked out. I was like, points for originality. I had never thought, oh, they'll get the bag of rats from out in the hallway and they'll use them. So as this guy's getting eaten, he's like screaming at him, save me. And they're like, tell us the information. So I'm like, I'm telling them like, I was like, his health is ticking down, guys. He's bloodied. He doesn't look good. They're like, what will you give us if we get he's like, more information. They're like, we want treasure. He's like, I'm a goblin. I don't have any treasure. And so
Look at all the mouths I have to
at
feed.
the end, they go, this is their justification. They're like, should we save him or not? And they're like, I don't know. We got enough people in our party. I don't think we need to have this guy tag along. So they just let this dude get eaten. And one of the players like, I want to stay back and watch. And I was like, oh, man. Okay.
That's like, please continue describing this scene.
I was like, all right, buckle up. Because he was like a tiefling, like a weird, like he was supposed to be like dark and edgelord. He had like, he said he had a Chris Angel haircut. So he described his character. So I was like, of course, this guy's a murder pervert. He's like back and listen.
They're all like, Ryan, we know you like horror movies. Describe this in detail.
Yeah, and I was like, so then the baby goblins are eating them alive. And I'm like trying to get through it. Anyways, there's a bunch of other stories from that campaign.
Crying.
That's one of those moments where you're just like, man, I'm really glad this is all remote because I don't think I want to be in the same room with these people.
I gotta look this guy in the eyes. Yeah. Anyways,
That was incredible.
Oh, man.
Just looking back at you going, keep going.
why did you stop? He's dead. He's gone.
And today Ryan saw into the soul of one of his friends. A deep, dark place.
Describe the bones to me.
Yeah. All right. Transition whoosh. Let's move on to our discussion of Dungeons and Dragons. Let's start with a plot summary.
It's Dungeons and Dragons
Honor Among Thieves.
Their
Andrew?
D&D hat.
D&D hat.
D&D hat.
Put on your D&D hat. Oh, I knew I meant to make a joke about that. Oh, well, too late.
Well, it's not funny because you've said it out loud.
Well, no, see, we invited Joel because we needed our hat of plus 20 D&D knowledge.
Oh.
So what's happening is I'm not
20 is
sure.
a lot.
I'm not sure if we're gonna pass him around as we need the specific knowledge and wear
Gross.
him as a hat, or all three of us wear him at the same time.
You sound like this player in my game. Jeez, Steven.
See, talking about
the
Ryan
bag of
McElroy.
If I see one rat tail, I'm out of here.
I got the bag of rats over here, guys.
You would.
All right. Here's the plot summary. A charming thief and a band of unlikely adventurers embark on an epic quest to retrieve a lost relic. But things go dangerously awry when they run afoul of the wrong people. That is the most generic
Afoul of the wrong people.
Any movie
that
ever
could be
made.
any D&D campaign, I think.
I think that's kind of the point.
It is, yeah.
Well, it's good to not get spoiled in the plot. And then he discovers that his uncle is really his brother. Like, why is that the synopsis?
And how's that possible? Yeah. All right, so this movie was released on March 31st, directed by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein. Are you guys familiar with either of those names?
No.
Okay.
No.
The John Francis Daley guy he's an actor. He was on Freaks and Geeks, and he's been on Bones. And like when I saw his picture.
okay.
I do know. Yes. Yeah, I do know him.
So the Freaks and Geeks connection is where the cameo came from then. We won't get into who it is. That's maybe a spoiler. I don't know.
Yeah.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah, but one of them. Yeah, I do remember that now.
This was written by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein and Michael Giglio. So yeah, Daley and Goldstein have worked together on other projects. They co-wrote Horrible Bosses and Spider-Man Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
So two pretty big things. Yeah. And they wrote and directed Vacation, which was the reboot of the National Lampoon's Vacation that came out in 2015. With,
I didn't see that.
Ed Helms, I think.
Yeah.
And I never saw it, but I heard it was pretty good. And Game Night. Have you guys ever heard of Game Night?
Mm-mm.
I saw trailers for it, but I didn't.
It's actually really good. Like I same way I saw the trailers, like this looks like a generic, comedy. It's actually really good. It's basically Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams are like husband and wife, and they have this game night, and everything goes awry. It's very similar to Horrible Bosses, if you've seen that.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like things just like escalate and escalate. And,
well, like that's a pretty good cast already with what is proving to be a pretty good writing, directing duo.
Yeah. It seems like they're a writing directing duo here. So the music is by Lauren Balfe, who did Ghost in the Shell, the Scarlett Johansson American,
which honestly was pretty good for the music.
Yeah, I thought so too. He did Black Widow, and he did Wheel of Time.
Ooh.
Oh, we're doing so well until
he had a lot of other stuff. That's just the three big ones.
Now, granted, the Wheel of Time soundtrack was probably the only good part of the show.
The highlight. Just say the highlight.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember it honestly.
I don't remember. It wasn't presented in runtime. Like you have to go back and listen to it on Spotify to actually get it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Because I was like, I don't remember it being like annoying or anything.
Yeah. Like, it was fine.
Okay, starring Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Justice Smith, Hugh Grant, Sophia Lillis, Renee Jean Page. The budget was $150 million,
which is a lot.
That's a lot of money. Yeah.
And as of the time of recording, which I haven't checked it late this afternoon, I checked this morning, it was $38 million domestic and $70 million worldwide.
Yeah, which is pretty respectable.
That's a good opening. And that's opening weekend, basically. That's a good opening weekend.
So hopefully they make their money back and they do more.
Yeah, I would like to see a sequel.
Yeah, I would love to.
Or even
just show your hand about how you like
the
film already.
Or even just we're going this way. Or even just a continuation within the universe. It doesn't have to be like an actual sequel, right?
Yeah. So overall thoughts, what did everybody think?
I just told you what I thought.
Well, jump in, go for it.
I said I would see
Guest starts.
Oh my gosh!
Oh my goodness!
Let me be rude.
Oh my goodness. So this movie, like on paper, has kind of a niche audience, right? Like it's very specifically D&D. There is kind of a general acceptance of fantasy fiction in film and TV right now, higher than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And so this definitely benefits from that. But like it's actually really well written, really well acted, and it brings quality to the screen that kind of lets it bust out of whatever niche it might otherwise have been pigeonholed into, I think.
Yeah.
That is,
I agree completely.
That's a very good.
Yeah, because it definitely, just on paper, it's just a normal fantasy kind of thing, and because it was, baseline just good all around, had good music, good,
performances,
performances, all that kind of stuff. It allows basically all the actors and the production staff to really elevate it up to something a little bit better and a little bit more than kind of what I was expecting going into it, and I loved it.
So what were you expecting going in?
Probably just like, something kind of fun, just basically all comedy of them kind of like very meta making fun of themselves, like in a D&D campaign style thing.
Yeah.
Or like almost to the point where like, a certain creature goes by on the side of the screen and then Chris Pine looks at the screen and like almost winks, I saw the Easter egg, did you kind of thing? And we didn't get that at all.
And it actually like ended up turning out to be an incredibly genuine, emotional kind of ride where you have, you laugh, you cry, you get excited like for your characters. And I think that's just a great story. It was just a lot of fun.
It hit me a lot like there's this old independent film project called Darkness Rising, which is it's a parallel storyline film where you've got the real world characters who are having their own personal arcs and struggles and whatever, and they're also playing a D&D game, and kind of their personalities and their real world stories are kind of being projected into the game.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a neat concept.
They show the game with those same actors playing their characters. And so they do a lot of meta things where like the characters will break character and then speak to each other as the players, in the middle of the D&D scene. And so this film felt a lot like that, just substituting the real world plot for then giving all the characters their actual plot.
Yeah.
It had that same sort of humor throughout, willing to poke fun of tropes, but at the same time, earnestly desiring to tell a compelling, dramatic story at the same time.
Yeah. What about you guys?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought, again, it was really well acted. I liked the comedy. I think it reminded me, not necessarily directly, but similar to like the first Guardians of the Galaxy. And then, like I went into it not really sure what to expect, and then was met with comedy, action, and like some heartfelt stuff. You know what I mean? Like it was a pretty good package of all that. When I was kind of like you, Andrew. I was expecting almost a spoof.
Yeah, but then like you actually got out like towards the end. I was like, am I like is this how I feel right now?
Yeah, feelings about this?
Yeah. So I really like that comparison to Guardians of the Galaxy, because I think when that trailer hit, right, I looked at that. I was like, wow, this is a very small fan base, very niche subject. And this they could either just go wild with this and do all kinds of cool stuff, or it could just collapse terribly
and just be mediocre.
Right.
And it's like Space Raccoon?
Or worse. Yeah. And then we have this, which is kind of the same thing. It's coming from a niche fan base, and it could either be amazing if they really they lean in, they pull it all off, or it could just be terrible. And I walked out, I was like, wow, they hit every note that I wanted and gave me extra, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what surprised me, because they didn't really do anything that crazy.
Groundbreaking.
Yeah, no, there was no moment in the story where I was like, oh, I never saw that coming, or whoa, what an idea. It was just, they took tried and true ideas and they executed it really, really well.
Yeah.
Over and over and over and over, where it wasn't just like, oh, they did that part really, really well. And if you fast forward the first 30 minutes and you get to that, then it's worth what? No, the whole thing just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Which that really impressed me, because that's just a high level of execution across the board. The writing, the directing, the performance, the music worked well. And I kind of wonder if it kind of lucked out in the sense where, you put D&D at the front of it, and, high power executives who would want to meddle and be like, oh, this is a great idea to push my, what's the guy who really wanted the giant spider to be in Superman, and then he got it in Wild West. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you have one of these guys who's just like, well, that's a great story, but I think it needs a spider. And when I say spider, I mean,
how do you feel about a bag of rats?
Right? So I feel like it almost kind of slid under the radar of those types of people, because it wasn't a big enough tentpole or a summer blockbuster.
Yeah.
And so it let the writing and the directing and the actors have a lot more room to work with, to really, because it feels like a lot of them are very invested and they care about what's going on, and they just nail it.
Yeah. I think for me, the only thing I would say about the comedy is that and this is not necessarily a knock against the movie, more of just like a critique of my experience, because I've watched, I've listened to actual play podcasts that are really funny, like The Adventure Zone and Dungeons and Daddies, which is not a BDSM podcast. that's in their title. That's the title. It's Dungeons and Daddies, a D&D podcast, not BDSM. Yeah. But I've also watched, some Critical Role, and I've watched their show Legend of Vox Machina, and all of these are very rated R comedy type things.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there were a couple of moments where I felt like this movie wasn't necessarily held back by the PG-13, but just there were some scenes that would have definitely been punched up a little bit if they could have gone a little harder in some scenes.
A little more violent, or...
But I understand why they didn't, because there was kids in my screening. I know what they're going for, and Hasbro owns this, so I'm not faulting it. I'm just compared to the other D&D comedy media that I've consumed, this was the most tame and safe feeling, I think is the way to put it.
So I will say, and that's an interesting kind of appeal, right? Of it's a new story for a lot of people, a new kind of realm, and also it's bring the kids, be entertained, let's get this going.
Yeah,
because it is PG-13, and they do curse, Like there are several words that come up in there. But interestingly enough, and I don't know, maybe it's slid past me, but my wife and I, she pointed out, well, it's PG-13, so they should get one F-bomb, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't. They never cashed that in.
Which is good.
Which I think actually is good.
I think it's good.
It's just funny to think about because there are certainly moments that happen in there where someone could have just looked at the screen and just been like, oh, and it would have been like, yeah, that's what I would have said too,
So with the only person that actually has kids in the room right now, would you take your kids to go see this film?
I would I would probably
have a contest, see which kid won.
I would probably
send them
once
through
it
the
goes
maze.
once it goes to streaming, I would let my 8-year-old watch it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That feels pretty safe.
There are enough scary creatures in there, like particularly this was in the trailer, the Displacer Beast.
Yes.
The hunting methods of the Displacer Beast are very disturbing.
Yeah.
If you are paying attention and have just enough cognition to understand what it's doing.
Yeah.
That I would be a little concerned for the film being too scary for little kids.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But not like the level of violence. There's really no blood in this at all.
No. It's all high fantasy violence. It's really high adventure kind of stuff. Like it's like watching. It felt very much like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes.
Right?
That's a good.
That's
good
actually a really
comparison.
good comparison.
Like even the score was reminiscent.
Yes.
Yeah. The music was great. I loved like pretty much all the action. Like there's a couple fantastic sequences that you only get hints at in the trailer, so I can't really talk about it right now
until we get to the spoiler wall.
But there's just some phenomenal, just like really well blocked out pieces of action set pieces that they do that are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And also to its credit, and I'm going to use this word. I don't use this word lightly because I hate this word. There are a couple of moments of subversion of expectations.
Bringing out the Johnson.
I hate that phrase.
You've never said that.
But the way they do it, it's not for like major things where it's like, what a twist or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But the way they pull it off, which we'll get into in some of the spoilers, I thought hit very well because they used it to play either from comedy to seriousness or back from seriousness to comedy. Yeah. As opposed to being like a major point where it's like, oh, what's the matter? You weren't smart enough to understand what's going on, kind of thing.
That's a big deal too with the tone of the writing here because it does go back and forth between those quite often. And this is definitely on the level of, like you said, Guardians of the Galaxy as opposed to Thor: Love and Thunder, right? Like
yes.
That's a good point too.
The one thing that I really liked about this too was a lot of because whenever you have like D&D, which is a very lore heavy franchise, you always worry that they're going to just beat you over the head with exposition just because there's so much that has to be explained, and this movie does a fantastic job of show don't tell.
Yeah,
where
they really do. Yeah.
They don't linger too long on like long big exposition dumps of like, oh, this is where this city is and this is why the people are this way, like
did you know they call it Neverwinter because
like,
and they have the obligatory like medieval map scene right where they scroll over the continents, you can kind of picture where everything is, but that's really that's one of the best tropes of the genre, I think, is because you get that really concise set piece of, okay, this is the world that I'm in and I don't have to be told about it for 15 minutes.
Yes.
But also even that, like the map scroll, right, doesn't super matter because this isn't like Lord of the Rings where we're journeying from point A to point B. Yeah. It's very much so. It takes place mostly within one or two locations and kind of the geographic relevance of the places don't really matter that much for the plot. It establishes, hey, this is a fantasy world. They've said these names of these places and here's a map and you have kind of an idea of what the world looks like. And it's a bigger world than what we're going to see. I did like they did have a bit of exposition. We'll get into this in spoilers, but it surrounds a battle.
Yeah.
And the way they handled that exposition was fantastic.
It was hilarious.
Absolutely fantastic. Because honestly, they basically dumped a whole, like it could have just been a dude talking to you. And they did it in a way where it slid right past me initially. And I was like, oh man, they just like handed me a whole bunch of story details and just passed it off as comedy. That was great.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to, would you recommend this movie? Joel, let's go first since you're the guest.
100%. Like I'm actively looking for an opportunity to go see it again in theaters.
Yeah.
Like I had so much fun, laughed out. I laughed out loud in the theater, which is difficult to get me to do. And I cried, which is not difficult to get me to do.
I did that walking in when I looked at my popcorn. It was nothing. Yeah, my wife was saying what she didn't go see it with me this time because scheduling, and she was like, "Would you be willing to go see it with me again?" I was like, "Yeah, no problems,
no question."
Yeah, Steven, would you recommend this movie?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think this is something that I could easily just be like, "Hey, like we got a Sunday and there's not a whole lot to do. Like, let's get a matinee and just go watch it again."
Yeah.
Just to kind of get ahead of, because it'll be a little while before it hits, streaming or DVD or whatnot, Blu-ray, just to see it again. Because honestly, there were so many moments where I busted out laughing. They handle the comedy in this while, again, being very emotional. I know we got Joel to cry. We got Andrew to cry.
Wow, I haven't even said that I cried and you already knew.
Outed.
Oh, no, it's not outed. It's just known. These are known. Like, when I look at a scene, I'm like, oh, that kind of tugged at me a little. I know Andrew's.
I definitely cried in this film. Both my wife and I did. And I'm kind of annoyed because when we're recording this is basically the week after opening weekend and the weekend, or basically the week before Mario movie comes out. And unfortunately, I have to go see the Mario movie instead of being able to go to the theater and watch D&D instead.
He's not going to be biased at all in his review of Mario, I promise.
But yeah, no, I thought it was great. I definitely recommend it to anyone that even remotely even just likes fantasy. And just like fun adventure.
That's a big deal, right? The Dungeons and Dragons bit at the start. Don't let that stop you and be like, well, I've never played the game. Like, you don't have to play the game to know what's going on in this.
And like, there are little bits that you can mine out that kind of you can point to and be like, oh yeah, I see what we're referencing here.
Oh yeah.
And I think that does deepen the appreciation of the experience to see how they wove that stuff in. But it's not required.
No.
And I hope that like the trailer, like, prove to people that you don't have to be like steeped in the lore or have played D&D extensively to enjoy it. But yeah, I think that wraps up our questions because the next one was like, would you rewatch it?
Yeah.
I think we'd all rewatch it. I think we would also all obviously recommend it.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, it sounds like D&D Honor Among Thieves rolled a nat 20 with both us and the critics. If you would like to roll a nat 20 and hit on some other great content, you can go to spoilersintendedpodcast.com and check out all of our previous episodes. I think it rolled just enough to clear, right? What's the term, Joel? What am I looking for here?
You met the DC.
Success. That's the word, success. On spoilersintendedpodcast.com, you can check out links to great things like our Discord, our socials, and our Patreon.
Yeah, and if you join us on Discord, not check us out, if you join us on Discord, you can join in on a lot of the fun conversation, what we're listening to, what games we're playing, what hobbies we're doing. It doesn't have to do with anything that we're watching. Like, we just like to hang out, have fun. And obviously we do have threads that are discussing new episodes of The Mandalorian or whatever else is coming out at the time. And you can just join us on there. We always have a good time.
Yeah, and if you're not following us on social, check us out on Facebook and Instagram because like at least once a week we post what we're watching the following week. So if you want to watch along with us, we'd love for you to do that. So definitely check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Okay, and we're back past the spoiler wall.
We are.
Guns are hot. Spoilers are out.
Locked and loaded? Guns? Wait, guns? This is D&D.
Magic missiles are loaded.
There we go, yeah.
He had like a little gun. Not really a gun sword. He had the spring.
I thought they did.
No, see, the magic missiles aren't a good like cinematic thing because they always hit. Right, like that's the thing about that spell is that
because it's a missile.
It always hits.
Simon totally had at least one cast. We're definitely in spoilers at this point. He had one cast where I thought it's like, was that a magic missile? But I don't see. I don't know enough to be sure.
If it was, then it got past me. I don't think
because it definitely hit his target.
Because magic missile, like in order to cast it at all, it shoots 3 projectiles that I'll go.
Oh, shoot. It was absolutely... Okay, when you go and rewatch this, watch for the scene kind of late in the movie. I'm pretty sure he cast magic missile.
Let me hit you with some trivia real quick, guys.
Okay, all right,
boy.
So a number of spells familiar to Dungeons & Dragons players are utilized in the final battle of Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, D&D hat. Let's see. Sophina attempts to hit Doric with Bigby's crushing hand, only to be countered by Simon casting Maximilian's earthen grasp to form a stone hand out of the cobblestones of Neverwinter. Sophina then teleports around using Misty Step and brings a statue to life using animate objects. Simon favors more direct damage dealing and defensive spells like Magic Missile, Scorching Ray, and Shield.
Yes! Vindication!
Joel, concur?
How is shield a direct damage?
It prevents direct damage.
It's a damage mitigator.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, it's a shield.
Well, it says direct damage and defensive spells.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, yeah, there it is.
There we go. Well, the magic missile got past me, but I concur on everything else.
Which is funny that it
didn't catch it. I was just like shooting stuff.
So anytime I hear Magic Missile, I just remember that silly animation from it has to be 20 years ago now. It was like early meme of like, I want to shoot the Magic Missile.
I always think of there was this thing from the early 2000s where some local news station interviewed some kids that were LARPing.
There's a bunch of LARPers.
And this guy's running around throwing Nerf balls going, Magic Missile, Magic Missile.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
They have like the kids in a sheet as a dragon or something like that.
Yeah. So while clearly there's no Britain in D&D, Justice Smith is the only actor not using his natural accent.
Justice Smith.
He played the Simon.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So this movie was filmed in April 2021 through August 2021. The release date was moved to November 2021 to accommodate for Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. .exe.
And then it got
glad
pushed
they did
back.
that.
And then later to May 2022, and then March 2023, all because of COVID. So this movie's been done for like 2.5 years.
It's so interesting to see, because we're hitting a whole string of these movies where we keep talking about, it was pushed back, and then it was moved to here, and blah, blah, blah. It's interesting to keep seeing how much was being produced in, that stretch of like right before COVID hit and like in the COVID times that are coming out now. It's just like, this has been sitting on, a shelf somewhere for like a year and a half.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was saying that's also really interesting looking at that timeline because the fact that it got delayed so long put it dangerously close to the Wizards of the Coast OGL fiasco earlier this year.
Yeah, that
where they came out and they were saying we're going to change a whole bunch about the rules and about the licenses and stuff that would potentially put a lot of third-party content creators' careers at risk.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. And there was a huge community backlash. A lot of boycotting of Wizards of the Coast materials and owned properties, and they kind of backed off of it in late January, early February. But there was a lot of concern that if they didn't do that the boycotting would continue through to the film. Yeah, which was only put in that position because of the delays.
Well, I was gonna say, to me, and I hope if you're listening to this and you're a fan of D&D and you haven't seen the movie, like check it out. It's not the movie's fault that Wizards of the Coast decided to be dirtbags for a little bit, like
for a little bit.
Yeah. Like
for their whole career.
For a hot minute. So speaking of like Wizards of the Coast and releasing stuff. So this movie opens in the frigid prison known as Revel's End. So amusingly, Revel's End was created specifically for Honor Among Thieves, but delays in filming the movie led to the prison actually being introduced in the D&D canon in 2020 adventure Icewind Dale.
Oh, wow.
Rime of the Frost Maiden, which was, I think, supposed to come out kind of like around the same time.
Yeah.
And so they went ahead and released it. So now it's like a thing that's part of D&D.
That's cool.
People are just like, I know this place, when it was supposed to be like, this is your first view of it.
Yeah. So one of the last bit of trivia, then we'll move on to our thoughts here. So the directors opened up about Monty Python's influence on the film, with Jonathan Goldstein explaining that while the creative team wanted to make a comedy, they did not want to mock the source material. Yeah. Saying, we never want to go too far when it becomes a spoof of fantasy films. And we also wanted to be able to pivot from something creepy and more traditional fantasy to an absurd, almost Monty Python type sequence, the director said.
Which, I mean, they definitely get that with the projection.
The distraction.
The distraction projection of Chris Pine.
That was probably the funniest part. Okay, so let's move into spectacle.
Sure.
Andrew, why don't you lead off?
Okay. So probably the biggest takeaway for me positively was there were so many practical effects in this, especially like a lot of the costume design and everything for a lot of the non-human characters. Just like the big fish where they, then you have the two cat people.
The dragon that's on the council in the prison at the front. Yeah. It's like, Yeah.
Like
Jonathan is also
Jonathan.
But yeah, I loved all of the practical costumes, which was great. It very like I was not expecting that at all.
No,
because going into this, like I was like, oh, I'm sure we'll have a couple different like random like races and stuff, but nothing to the extent that we got, which was great.
And that really, throws in a lot of limitations into how you can utilize those characters because their range of motion is obviously limited and whatnot. Yeah. But it really provides a grounded texture that you just don't get if you coat everything in CGI.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was gonna say, while you can't have like one of your main characters be leaping around and slashing as in the dragon.
It can't be
Yoda or whatever.
Yoda.
Yeah.
One of those. Dragon something.
There are two different races he could have been.
Well, either way. Yeah. You can't, if it's practical effects, right? He can't be like leaping around, hacking and slashing. But dropping them in like as the council or in the background of a town or whatever, it just adds that extra oomph of the setting. And again, for people who have been playing D&D, they can do the Leo pointing me of, oh, I know what this is, and annoy their wives or girlfriends or whatever.
Yeah. So the one thing that I will knock the movie a little bit on is for $150 million budget, I think they could have done a little bit better on a lot of the green screening. Like that's kind of nitpicky because it was still totally fine and acceptable, but there was definitely a lot of times where I could see the seams in a scene. And
do you remember any scene in particular?
A lot of the earlier ones, whenever it's just like duo shots of Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine, like kind of just having a conversation, and you can definitely tell that they're on a green screen and not on location somewhere.
Like the wintry background.
Yeah, like those kind of things where it's just like I can just see the edges.
Yeah.
But like the action scenes were fantastic,
they're
really well choreographed, and the one in particular that I've mentioned earlier was the reverse heist for the carriage.
Everything about the reverse heist.
Specifically when the druid kind of does the front fall into the crouch up through the portal.
That's such a good
and the camera follows her through the arc.
So that's all practical.
Yeah.
So they actually had a whole rig where basically she was basically pulled up by wires, and the camera matched that same movement to where it did that. So it's all practical. And then
such a great effect.
Yeah, it's a great shot.
They have like the carriage was like kind of like this open door thing. So then like as she moves up, the camera moves in and the door closes behind the camera. So then he can turn around.
Yeah.
Like, it was phenomenal. Like really cool.
That was really good.
Yeah. That's that one shot in particular. Again, because we're doing magic, right? Like, and they hit that camera and it's just like this, everything about this is magical.
Yes.
I think that entire, really all the heists were fantastic. And the special effects, the layout and the explanation of like what their plan is. And then they did that really good thing where like they don't explain it fully.
Yeah.
And then the complications that come up of like, they've laid the painting on the ground. And
he fell over.
Yeah. I loved that. The CG they used on the table of like them trying to chip away at it and stuff. I saw a lot of people online complaining about the CG being like terrible. And I was like, no, I didn't think it was like the best CG ever.
It wasn't Avatar.
Right. But at no point was I like, ugh, I've seen a lot of people giving it grief online.
Interesting.
Specifically the CG. And I was like, okay, that's a take that someone could have.
I wonder if they're mistaking the practical effects on some of the characters for bad CG.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's someone
CG cat. It's not CG person.
It's actually
just an actual fur.
Yeah.
Joel, what did you think of the spectacle?
I thought it was really fantastic. It was just such a fun ride to get to visualize the kind of antics that go on at a table, right? Like, because one of the during the promotion campaign, one of the things that had come up, obviously they put the owlbear sequence in the trailer. Yeah. And people are like, oh, you can't turn, into an owlbear. That's a monstrosity. It's not a beast. Blah, blah. Yeah. Anyway, and the director or writer, whoever was kind of responding to this, was saying, look, we're trying to represent the spirit of the player's experience. Yeah. As opposed to literally what you can do with the rule set, which I think was absolutely the correct choice.
Yeah, 100%.
It produced this adventure that, not only the visual spectacle was there, right? I think the reverse heist is probably my favorite sequence, followed up very closely by fat cat dragon in the Underdark.
Pudgy dragon was so good.
Because it is absolutely, they are in mortal peril, but you are just giggling the entire time.
I love
I've got his name somewhere. I know I wrote it down.
I love the payoff of them realizing that it couldn't actually shoot fire unless it had a spark, or basically like a fuel source for it, and just like the puzzle solving that kind of causes. Like throughout.
Yeah, and that's the kind of those are the kind of stories that get told about games, right? It's this situation occurred and this was the crazy solution we came up with, and the DM said, sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like
that's exactly what it felt
or to go back to like the owlbear thing, right? It's one of those moments where the player is like, well, I specialize in this. Okay. Well, then get your dice out. Let's roll on this. And the person just rolls the 20, rolls the 20, rolls the 20. And the DM is just like, okay, I guess you can transform into an owlbear at will. Like that's the kind of thing that happens in games where it could be like, well, like really, really side case that you're going to need a lot of luck for this. And then they just nail it. And those are, again, the great stories that come up with, oh, yeah, then, the time that Alan just couldn't stop rolling hot fire and we all lived through the dragon encounter that we shouldn't have or whatever.
Yeah Steven, what about you?
I honestly I love the costuming. I love the effort put into that. Again, just for tying it in. I think for me, like the CGI, honestly, I never really had a moment where like they did an effect and I went, ooh.
I like the gelatinous cube. It felt very gelatinous.
It felt very gelatinous. And I mean, like they put, for it being, again, a fantasy world, even with all the costuming, they put a lot of demands on their CGI. And we have a whole chase sequence of our druid transforming, boom,
that was great.
Boom, boom.
That was a lot of fun.
And like all that holds up, like, and it has to because it is dead center of the screen and
it is what's happening.
She did turn into a deer.
Then they play it for a good laugh and everything else. So I think they really excelled on all of those parts, just kind of over and over again. I did have one small complaint and I'm trying to see what it was and I don't know what it was, so I'm not going to have anything to complain about.
Here, you look it up. I'm going to say one more thing about Spectrum.
Go for it.
So I think the one thing I do want to shout out for sure is like the settings, whether they were CG or on location. Like I think the set design, the
environmental effects,
it just really brought home that idea of like what you visualize as the world of the Forgotten Realms and how it should look. But then again, showing varied sides of it. I thought like the cemetery looked so cool, when they were talking to the dead bodies like that. And then when they visit Bradley Cooper, I thought his little house was like, I don't know, everything to me, the set dressing,
it felt very tactile.
A huge part of it. Yeah.
And it was also very detailed too, right? Even down to Simon's material pouch being this like rotary
that was cool
device where it's just like, okay, I need this spell which needs this component, so I'm going to move the device to that thing and then king, it's almost like a coin dispenser.
Almost. Yeah.
So this is I don't want to call this a knock on it, right? But maybe a nitpick or just something that kind of caught me off guard. And you referencing Bradley Cooper brought it back.
Yeah.
But just kind of seeing, I guess, are they called, is it halfling? Is that what they go with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So seeing them kind of portrayed the way they was a little uncanny valley.
It kind of has to be.
Because they were proportionally human.
Right.
Yeah.
I kind of like seeing a halfling, again, basically all the art you ever see of a halfling is just going to be a hobbit, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of where I would expect it to be. So then seeing just
Bradley Cooper,
3/4 size Bradley Cooper is kind of like,
which I didn't know this till I was looking it up for trivia, but they added him later. So the original movie that would have come out in 2021 had another actor.
Oh, really?
They didn't name who it was, but like there was, I think the Daly, one of the directors, is like friends with Bradley Cooper, worked on with something else.
Well, he
mentioned I'd love to be in D&D, and they was like, well, the movie's done, and they were like, well, hold on, it's delayed to 2023. We could shoot you on a green screen.
It's from it's one of the first things you mentioned for the directors. Like
Freaks and Geeks.
Freaks and Geeks. That's the connection with Bradley Cooper.
Well, I think it's a recent project, but yes, there's that.
They
too.
also have it. I'm pretty sure that was. I think I saw that reference somewhere. But yeah, I mean, again, in terms of spectacle, like there's basically no real bad notes.
Yeah.
Here, the costuming was great. We kind of keep hitting on this, but like everything felt real. It felt lived in. you didn't really have that moment where, like Rand strides across the screen in an $800 jacket off of the Nordstrom
coat.
Yeah. All these moments where you're just
right out of Times Square.
Like, boy, all right. Yeah, shepherd boy. That's definitely what shepherd boys wear.
All right, well, let's move on to performance.
Sure.
Andrew, do you want to lead off with that?
I mean, sure. I led off on spectacle.
Give it to
Steven,
the
you go.
guest.
Joel, lead off on
Stop
performance.
being rude and give it to the guest.
I want to put
Anyone
a
that makes eye
highlight.
contact with me, I say yes.
I want to put a highlight on Michelle Rodriguez's.
Oh, dang it. You
Oh,
took
she
it.
was
I
great.
should have gone first.
Now, see, you made your bed, now lay in it, okay?
Because one thing that this movie did like perfectly was it took the character archetypal tropes,
Yeah.
right? You have the dumb meat shield barbarian.
Yeah.
You've got the stick in the mud paladin.
Mhm.
You've got the duplicitous bard.
Yeah.
And it said, okay, we're going to stay true to this trope because that's how we kind of poke fun at things.
Yeah.
But we're also going to honor the trope by making them real people.
Right.
Yes.
And
They're not just surface level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and like everyone did a fantastic job with that, but I don't think anyone did it better than Michelle Rodriguez because her barbarian was amazing.
Yeah. Holga was great. She,
Yeah.
there was so many lines where, like, going into it, I didn't like expect to dislike Michelle Rodriguez or anything, but I didn't think she was going to be like literally my favorite character out of the whole.
She's very much so typecast, right? So it's fun to see her in a role that would be like, oh yeah, they would cast Michelle Rodriguez for this, and then her get the part in a way where there's flexibility in there, where you get to get more of an emotional side, or she gets the straight man comedy bits of, so she did turn into a deer.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
she just nails it over and over and over again. So I was actually really happy to see not only just her there, because she fits the role, right?
Mhm.
I mean, we've seen her in every other thing being this kind of character.
Yeah, being a hard.
But also it having kind of those expanded edges of where she gets to do more within it, because she nailed it just over and over and over
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. So
Joel also stole, obviously, a point I was going to
Yeah.
So rude.
Steven,
All right,
performance,
well,
anything else? Anything else?
I'm going to highlight Hugh
Yeah.
Grant, because
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. Like when I think of Hugh Grant, I'm like, mid-90s rom-com,
Notting Hill.
awkward British man, right? The initial scene where you really get introduced to him, where he is in the room talking to Chris Pine. What is Chris Pine's character's name?
Edgin.
Edgin.
Yeah.
Keep trying to call him Edric. Edgin and Helga and
Holga.
Holga and the daughter's there. And
Kira.
they have the
I've got them pulled up right in front of me.
The NPC that also has a name.
yes.
Yeah, this isn't fair. I have them pulled up right in front of me.
Yeah.
Continue.
And then they have the tea, and he keeps going on about how the tea's just, this is so hot, it's so scalding.
I thought that was going to end up being a clue to something that the wizard was doing to him.
Well, because to me,
She
again,
puts her finger in it.
but
I don't know. You got to put your
Finger.
Okay, I'll just
Yeah.
save that for later.
that was because he's nailing kind of what I expect from him, which is kind of the awkward Brit, while also just like flowing so seamlessly into this world of just being this character where he's just, like, it almost kind of felt like they just sat him down like, okay, so this is kind of what the scene is, and he just kind of ran with it.
Yeah.
And then she, oh, could you cool this down? And, she puts her finger at it. He's like, oh, I didn't know you were gonna put your finger. I'll save that for later. But like, because it's such a throwaway aside, and it's just nail, over and over and over again. And I think he did a good job of kind of flipping between that, where you could almost not take him seriously, but then also like you get the scene where he's with Kira and it's like the manipulation.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, like this is actually like this dude's up to no good. And like he's very aware of. Give me a name. Come on. What's her name?
Sophina?
Yeah. See, if you're just going to cue me, I'm not going to look at my own notes.
I was like,
there was a pause, and I was like, "What's happening?"
Yeah, I was on the edge of my seat.
I have expectations. But like he's very aware of Sophina's end goals here. Like he knows what the plan is. He basically says it as he leaves with the money. He just doesn't care because this is like how terrible a person he is, right?
Yeah.
And I think he played that heel and villain and manipulator really well, while also still kind of having that edge of kind of a goofy con man who, just kind of has been skidding by, skin of his teeth and hasn't really ever amounted to something until now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I honestly, I loved his performance.
Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and take it since someone already took Michelle Rodriguez from me. I'm going to go with Reggie Jean Page. the Zenkiandar, who is the stick in the mud paladin. And I don't know anything. Gosh. I don't know anything about paladins in the lore for D&D.
They're sticks in the mud.
This is how every paladin is role played.
Their entire like source of magic is based around binding themselves with an oath.
Okay.
So like the whole character concept is rigid adherence to an ideal.
Gotcha. Well, he played it perfectly. He like such a great straight man to, does this band of misfits essentially of doing stuff. And one, he had some great action scenes, kind of in the I can't even remember. Underdark. There it is. I was going to say the Nether, but that's Minecraft. But the best, like, his lines of dialogue whenever he's kind of interacting with the other characters, because he's just so straight-laced that he can't understand like why they're being sarcastic.
There's no context here because I don't need context because I am
the context.
Well, and they did that thing where they didn't stray so far towards Guardians to do like a Drax type thing.
But it's real close
because he's very smart. It's just because Drax is an idiot,
right?
But
he also is just literal.
Where this guy's literal and he's also very smart and incredibly strong. And I'm assuming just from what I gathered, paladins are just absurdly powerful.
They are. He like if you broke down the stats of the party, he was an NPC. That the DM sent along.
It was an escort quest.
He was much higher level than
much higher level than them because they couldn't take on what was about to happen.
But I thought he did a great job, and I know he's from Bridgerton. I think is one of the things that a lot of people know him from. And I like when we were in the theater, like Holly did the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. We pointed at the screen. That's him. That's him.
That's the guy. I know that guy.
Yeah, but he did great. I actually really liked the girl who played Sophia. Sophina. Yeah.
Daisy Head.
She has those eyes.
Oh yeah,
she does. I think she did a really good job too of being like super creepy without being like
over the top about it?
Over the top or stereotypical, just like maniacal laugh.
She's creepy because she's so far above you that she's completely disconnected. Like everything is beneath her. She doesn't have why would I actually like interact with you?
She's an evil wizard, not an evil witch. There's a distinction.
For sure.
I also liked Chloe Coleman. So this is actually the second movie I've seen with her in it within the past 3 weeks, which is really weird. So she was the daughter in 65.
She's Kira.
Oh yeah,
she's the daughter.
Is.
She's just everybody's daughter right now. What the heck?
But she did a really good job. She's only in the movie for probably 2 minutes of actual screen time, but. She did a good job.
She's more of a MacGuffin than a character.
But I mean, she participates in the final, invisibly, but there it is.
I'll jump in and shout out the only 2 remaining cast members. Sophia Lillis played Doric.
I liked her a lot.
Tiefling. I thought she was great. I like her. I found this. What was the Emerald
Enclave?
Yeah, she found this group and she's fighting for them more than anybody else, but then she kind of falls into the found family of this whole party. And then, Justice Smith. I think there was a couple of lines where his British accent got a little on my nerves. Not a lot, but it was the way he said some words. I was like, you're not British. And I had that moment of I wonder why because no one else is doing any kind of accent. They're just Chris Pine is Chris Pine.
Just Captain Kirk over here.
Chris Piney film.
The most Chris Pine performance Chris Pine has ever done is with the trailers. But I thought Justice Smith did really good as Simon. I liked his arc of he doesn't believe in himself, and then that later became the thing that he had to. We got mini backstories with everybody, and we got to see the personal growth of each character. Pretty good. Not a ton, but enough to where I was satisfied.
And when you're dealing with an ensible cast, obviously you don't have time to do
every single
in a movie with a big cast. It's tough, but I thought they gave us more than I expected.
For sure. I will say Doric didn't get as much as everyone else just because she was kind of again the last person to add to the party. But if no one called out Justice Smith, I was going to do it because honestly, there's a lot of emotional pieces in here. And his actual story arc was maybe the one that hit me the most or that stuck with me the most it's just his self-doubt holding him back. And kind of confront. I thought they did that really well story-wise, but also he really sold it. And so, quite enjoyed this. If no one was going to mention them, I was definitely going to do it. But we're basically just saying everyone was good because they were.
I mean, they were.
was good,
I didn't have any complaints about anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to score.
The score of the score without the score.
Without the score. I'll lead off on this one. I like the score a lot. I feel like it does a good job of like fitting the fantasy tropes and matching certain scenes where it needs to, but still being kind of original enough not to sound too derivative of like, it's not like they were like, let's just rip off, The Lord of the Rings, or let's rip off, something else.
More Lord of the Rings.
Right. Yeah. The only thing I would say about the soundtrack is that like there are definitely some songs that don't stand on their own for sure. You have to have them in the context of the movie to really like appreciate them. Mm-hmm. Whereas like, there's some soundtracks where it's like every one of the songs you can just listen to.
Just
on
a banger. Yeah.
Basically Lord of the Rings.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. To go back to Lord of the Rings. But there's definitely like, 5 or 6 songs on this soundtrack that are like really, really good, especially the Dungeons and Dragons theme, which is like the 5th song on the soundtrack or whatever. I think it's a really good like title theme. And there's like a couple of themes from that song appear in some of the other stuff. And it does really good. What'd y'all think?
I again want to liken it back to Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Like that original soundtrack from the first movie. Yeah. I would say that this doesn't quite hit the highs that soundtrack does.
Yeah. But one main pirate song just hits.
Yeah. But this absolutely carries the same spirit.
It does,
and really benefits the tone that they were trying to hit with this film.
Yeah. So I'll jump in here. So I agree on both of those. However, I think that the two kind of sung songs that they do, like for just like kind of like their folksy songs or whatever, whenever they're riding their horses and everything, I thought those were a little. They could have. I guess maybe after being exposed to The Witcher,
I was gonna say it was
it was lacking.
Your Witcher.
It felt a little lacking for like a tavern song that like everyone would know and want to sing.
Yeah, I was waiting for those to be
like really catchy.
This is going to be a thing people are singing.
Yeah. I think that's probably the one place that they probably could have done a little bit more with because, like Toss a Coin to Your Witcher is just iconic.
Yeah.
And it was only in...
It's an earworm.
Yeah. And I was hoping that we would get some of those because I love those kind of like tavern style songs.
Honestly, like with him being a bard, I thought we were going to get more music.
Get a little bit more.
They really didn't harp on him being a bard. Like he had an instrument. He played that instrument, and he obviously wasn't a fighter per se.
Right.
But he also didn't do any sort of spell casting the way that you normally associate with bards.
He didn't inspire anybody.
I was actually like when the pudgy dragon appeared, I was like, are we gonna have a moment where like it's chasing them and he's like running while playing and singing to like inspire it or something? And then no, it didn't happen.
And I almost wonder if like they tried to go in that direction and then like got partway down the road and it's just like this isn't.
It doesn't work.
This is not gonna play on screen.
And it could have definitely been like a tonal change there of like they didn't want it to feel too lighthearted, especially whenever they're in mortal danger. But for the mechanics of like a party, and you are a part of that party, you need to be able to pull your weight, and like a bard in that.
And I personally appreciate that aesthetic choice that they made because I personally find bards silly and disruptive, and I don't like them.
So I'll add on, all what you have said mostly about the score. I agree. Like I think it matches what's on the screen really well. It carries both, like there's some comedic elements and good action elements, and also some emotional stuff in there, and that it backs all of that very well. Just to kind of add on to Andrew's bit, and I don't know, maybe it's just Chris Pine's singing voice, but like when he busts out into song, I was like, whoa, what is going on here? Like his voice changes.
Yeah.
And
it didn't sound like Chris Pine.
Was it his voice?
Right. Yeah. That's the thing is I wasn't sure.
I'm pretty sure it was.
I had a moment where I was like, are they dubbing him with somebody else? Because it sounds really different. Yeah.
But like he definitely kind of gets like the big, bold, like almost like he's trying to like perform for like a court, right? Like his voice gets deep, and blah, blah, and it just didn't quite hit as how I would like it to. Yeah. Kind of, again, not necessarily going back to like, throw a coin to your Witcher.
Toss a coin to your Witcher.
Toss a coin,
sir.
Whatever.
Get it right.
But either way, like going to like Wheel of Time with Tom as the Glee Man, where he, tosses in a lot of stuff. And like, we didn't get that kind of element either.
Yeah.
So like that definitely felt like it lacked, again, especially for him to be a bard. And it's like, well, they're not really giving you're not out here like doing like tumbling or knife throwing or really any of these fighting things. So like, again, as Doric asks them, so what is it that you do here? Like, well, I'm a planner. Well, that's it, apparently.
So you make plans that fail.
Yeah.
So when they go wrong, I'll make another plan. So you make plans that fail.
You assured us that this plan would work.
So I will say, from looking at some articles and stuff, in again talks of the possibility of a sequel.
Yeah,
they have the writers, directors have said that if they do a sequel with this same party, it would be fun to see them leveled up a little.
Yeah.
So again, that would give you the opportunity to have Chris Pine be more of either a fighter bard or whatever else.
Yeah, he can multi-class into something useful.
Yeah.
Well, From my understanding is pretty much all the spells that everyone was kind of casting in this are very low level spells.
Joel, can you confirm?
Who wants to be a millionaire music?
Do you need to phone a friend?
I don't know about that time stop spell
I would consider her
and
not.
She definitely, because like at the end she reveals herself to be a lich, and the spell that she's gearing up to kill Edgin with is very high level.
Yeah, I'm not worried about her because I would expect her to be a higher level.
Yeah.
It's more like Simon and
like
those spells are generally accessible fairly early in the game.
Well, I think when he's in the barn or whatever doing the performance for the people, isn't he doing just cantrips or whatever with like the grass thing? Yeah.
And that's, I don't know if we need to wait until another section for that, but that's a Critical Role reference.
Oh yeah, fresh cut grass.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
that's probably plot. Let's just transition
let's
right into
call it
plot,
plot.
everybody.
Plot.
Well, that's probably more entertainment, but anyways.
Plot.
What did everybody think about the plot?
I mean, it's predictable, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because what they do is they really do a good job of layering and paying off on those layers early on.
Yeah.
To where, I'll just pick the big one here. If you have the dragonfly, it shows up multiple times in, I'll say, key moments. And then obviously the biggest moment at the end, whenever Holga is dead, and he has to make the decision of do I resurrect my wife or do I resurrect her mom?
Yeah.
And that's the big,
and the realization that that's the choice was also a really heavy.
That's a heavy choice. Man.
Yeah. The second that the dragonfly showed up there, I was like, I'm gonna cry.
and they paid it off perfectly, because when Holga regains consciousness, she's like, "You idiot! Why did you spend it on me?"
She's like, "You wasted on me, did you?"
Yeah, which was the perfect response. It really landed the emotional weight, because you could have had her say something funny in a goofy way, that would have just completely undercut the importance of the choice.
Well, she understands the importance of the choice because she knows that only reason why he was doing all this is so he could resurrect his wife.
The gravity is there.
And it's not that, they're not related, but Holga is Kira's mother. Basically. And that's the most important part and takeaway from that is he has to realize that we already have a family. She already has a mom.
Well, it's ultimately it's him being not selfish, right? Because he wants to resurrect his wife, and he's being a father in this moment of bringing back her mother.
Yes.
And again, D&D is big kind of on the whole found family trope. That hits a lot in a lot of different stories. And I mean, this is it. This is it to a T. And again, I think it's done very well.
Yeah.
I think
you know everything that's going to happen.
Oh yeah. No. Everything. It was, I think I said that in the pre-spoiler, that it was pretty standard stuff. They didn't do any kind of, major whoa thing.
Yeah.
They just executed very well.
Yes.
Over and over and over.
And for me, it's one of those, I really liked the plot. Again, not because they did anything groundbreaking, but because they did that perfect thing where they did setup and payoff, setup and payoff constantly throughout.
Set it up and knock it down.
There's so many movies nowadays where they set stuff up and it goes nowhere because that was either left on the cutting room floor or whatever, or things just happen and there's payoff but no set, or there's a weak payoff because there was no setup. And this movie does, even though it's a simple movie in terms of we're not unwinding a crazy mystery or anything like that. I think the heists themselves were set up properly. And again, the emotional payoffs, everything has a through line. And that to me is always fun to see, a clean, I know where everything started and where everything ended. You know?
It's well connected.
Yeah.
And I got to say, the pacing on this I felt really great. Like the movie really just felt like it just flowed.
Yeah, it never felt like it really dragged.
No, and even going back to the moment of exposition where they have to dig up all the bodies, and so they're getting they're getting this story of the battle piecemeal. Included like, okay, we found the king's fastest runner. So what happened to you that day? Well, I got out of the bathtub and then I slipped. And so then you like got up and no, I died. But just stuff like that where they're literally, they are just handing you just essentially walls of text of this battle, but they did it in such a way where they broke it up. They made it funny. They made it interesting. And especially like the part they put in the trailer where it's the 5 questions joke, which is just such a D&D thing where the player is like, okay, so we only get 5 questions, like to the DM. Yeah. And he's like, okay, cool. And then he says something and he asks the DM something. The DM's like, that was 1 question.
Why did you make it a question?
Why did you say okay? I thought you made it a question.
Yes.
So good. I think that probably my biggest gripe plot wise is actually pretty minor. And there's 2 things that I can point to, like at the end, at the climactic fight where you've got, the daughter with the invisibility pendant putting the magic inhibitor bracelet on the wizard, and that's how they defeat her. Right. There was never a point where Edgin goes, everybody wait, I have an idea.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the kind of setup that I would normally want to have in that, so that I know, because you want to put that far enough back that enough stuff has happened that you kind of forget about it.
You almost forget it happened.
Until something unexpected happens. You're like, oh yeah, they set that up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they didn't have that scene. So I was a little disappointed at that, just kind of structure-wise.
Well, they missed, so they did, on your point here, they missed the beat, right? Because they show where once they get free of the maze and everything, right? They show kind of in the armory and the bracelets on the wall and the keys. And if they had that bit where Edgin unlocks it from Simon and then holds in his hand for a second, goes, hold on to that, right? It's the callback to protect this with your life. Okay, yeah. Hold on to that, right? Where he keeps handing things to Simon. And then we know they have the item. It's in Simon's, bag of holding or whatever he's got that he's stuffing everything in.
It is a bag of holding.
So
that's why I assumed it had to be.
The only counterpoint that I would have to that would be if for whatever reason they did have a scene where he like was talking to Kira and he's like, and like she's in the conversation of them trying to plan something, then it becomes too obvious of where they're going to go with it.
I think the only good opportunity you have for that is on the boat, right? Before they really launch into the climax. Yeah. And
because they don't know exactly where it's going to happen.
And they sorta had it. It's really flimsy.
Yeah.
Like he's just like, I'm going to keep that promise. Right? Like that's all he said.
Yeah.
But then the other one.
I do love that the portal staff is on his mouth. So just barfing treasure on everybody.
Every bit of that, because we get hit, right, with the thing being inflated, and it's just like Hugh Grant's face in your face.
Yeah.
And then later on, that's the payoff of him fulfilling his oath that, our stick in the mud paladin said, I believe you will keep your oath. And he's like,
yeah. I am particularly a sucker for the trope of through hardship you achieve everything that you ever desired, only to immediately then have to give it up, in order to serve some greater good.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was really like it's the kind of payoff at the end that I really enjoy.
Yeah, and honestly, I wasn't expecting it. Like I thought the whole time, I was like, we're going to get to meet the mom. We're going to meet the mom. And the closer we got, at no point was I like, oh, Holga's going to die and he's going to have to bring her back. And then when she got stabbed, I was like,
there it is.
There it is. And for me, I was like, oh, because I just wasn't expecting them to go in that route. And then again, he sees the dragonfly and that whole like thing of like making that. I've been doing nothing but trying to pursue this. And now I have to make the decision between bringing back my wife or my daughter's mom.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, I didn't see this coming. Oh no, my feels.
What I thought was going to hit, and it wouldn't be as big of a choice for him, it'd be a much more obvious choice, was he was going to have to use it to bring back his daughter.
Ooh, yeah.
See, I thought that's kind of where we were headed, but like, that's almost kind of a no-brainer for him. He's like, I was a bad father. I want to make up for it.
I'm glad
bring her
that
back,
they went
right?
the opposite direction.
Yes, yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it would have been that, then it would have been too easy.
Yeah. Well, also, child killing on screen is a little,
Yeah.
It's a little like, I don't, Michelle Rodriguez getting stabbed. She's a grown woman. She's a barbarian.
Yeah.
A little 12-year-old with an invisibility pendant getting like ripped in half by a red wizard. So I was like, let's not put that on screen.
And I think that's one of the things where like you have easy storytelling, which is that, and then you have complex storytelling, which is what we got.
Yeah.
And it's those kind of things of show don't tell is part of that, but then it's also just the layering that they've done throughout the whole film to basically make all of these character decisions, one, meaningful, and then two, good payoff for the audience.
Well,
and it makes you invested in them. Yeah.
It demonstrates a proper understanding of the character's needs and wants and how those things differ.
Yeah.
And how you can really pull out dramatic decisions from the difference between those things.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on into entertainment, because I think we're right there.
Entertainment.
Were you entertained?
All right. Everyone's favorite scene.
Are you not entertained?
Everyone's favorite scene.
I already said mine.
Well,
reverse
repeat it.
heist.
Reverse heist.
Yeah.
Well, since you take reverse heist, I'm gonna go.
You can still be reverse
Forward
heist.
heist.
Well, I'm gonna for picking something different. I'm gonna go with melting Chris Pine. Like that was
that was mine.
that was where
how dare you.
I actually busted out like full throat.
That-
laughing
yeah,
at the
yeah,
theater.
We were dying.
That was the one where I lost.
Yeah.
I definitely assumed it was just like, oh, we need a distraction. He's like, time for me to be a bard.
Yeah,
He goes
yeah.
in, then he just starts falling apart. Like, what is going on right now?
Yeah. It keeps going. That's
Yeah.
what made me
So-
laugh.
So I've brought it up before with like John Wick 4 and maybe a little bit with Creed, but we saw this movie at the summit, right? And it's been some question of like how like technical have they figured stuff out? So throughout the film, there are these little moments where it would kind of do like the like cut to black, but it definitely wasn't a cut to black in the film. It was something else going on.
Oh no!
But like that almost has to be in the digital film for that to happen.
Maybe.
I don't know
I'm
how
trying to
else you could
remember.
do. Yeah.
So it's like between scenes?
Well,
it
it's just
cuts to
like
black?
when they're being chased by the pudgy dragon and they're going into the tunnel to get to the cave.
Yeah.
It happened like right in the middle of that. And it's like there's no cut there. Like it was just there.
Was the audio cut out too?
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
They were just walking. Like
Did
they're
you
just,
hear a guy from the projections booth go, "Ah,
but like so like the thing is though, it was such a good setup because like there've been like small technical glitches, so we're all kind of on edge for it. And then he started going, R, and I was like, oh, did they just did something break? I was like, no, it's actually happening in the film. Like he's breaking, not the projection. So I had a moment where I was like, Summit, no.
What about you?
oh man, now I gotta think of another one. I mean, I think the opening with the them in the frozen prison and he's trying to talk his way out of it, and then
We are gonna pardon you.
yeah, like that whole escape.
Sounds great. I actually, in the middle of his monologue, I leaned over to my wife and I was like, $10 that all of this is a lie.
Jonathan.
Well, it's definitely like, I mean, he was telling the truth for that,
Yeah.
but like, I just loved that. Like, I guess he figured out that Jonathan, like, they could use him to like
He's
just
as
fly.
a bird man. Yeah. Well, so my favorite scene, since we've already taken basically everything else, is ultimately
The graveyard scene.
The graveyard, yes, it's the interview at the graveyard because
Yeah.
when that came out as a trailer, like up to that point, like the trailers, I'd be like, oh, this looks like it could be really
It
good.
sold me on the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
When that trailer hit, I was like, oh man, if this is what the movie is, then these people get it. Like they get it, and this is going to be great. And it was.
Yeah.
I think that was
So-
a brilliant clip to release.
Oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
actually, I'm going to go ahead and go on a little bit of a soapbox here.
Oh, a little bit
so,
of one? Or?
No, it has nothing to do with the actual
Big
scene.
soapbox.
And it has everything to do with modern trailers
Oh,
and
okay, yeah.
them revealing a lot of the really funny parts of comedies
Yeah.
in the trailers.
Or all of the funny parts are in the trailer. You get there
Yeah.
and you're like, I know every joke that's funny in this movie.
And it's so frustrating because all of these are great jokes and they have great comedic timing within the scenes. And whenever you just put those in trailers, you're like, oh, yeah, that gets you a good laugh. And you're like, oh, it kind of makes me want to go see the film. I get it. However, like, make a trailer better and make it more interesting to where we don't need to see all this stuff
Yeah.
to where whenever we get into the film, it's funnier and it hits better because we don't know it's coming.
We're not
A
expecting it.
better example of one of their really good trailer spots for this film was when Edgin just says the line, just because that sentence is symmetrical doesn't mean it makes any sense.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You have no idea what he's responding to.
Mhm.
Just the thing he said is clever and funny.
Yes.
But even with them kind of spoiling the graveyard joke, right? Because like when we got to that scene, I was like, oh, this is the scene that I liked from the
Yes.
trailer. And they did it. And then the scene kept going, and it kept getting goofier and like giving us more.
And like that was a good reason. Like that kind of scene adding like as a promo thing is totally fine because there was so much more to that scene than just that one little interaction.
So they get away with it there because again, I thought, oh, they're going to hit us with the scene. I'm going to laugh because I know it's funny in the trailer, and then we're going to go somewhere else. No, we're going to just get the shovel out, boys. Keep digging like that.
Well, and the way they cut it too, where it didn't show them just like digging, it was just like shovel in the ground, jump cut into the thing.
Box opening.
Like, we already know it. Yeah, okay, let's move on.
It's just like Into the Spider-Verse where it's like backstories. Like, okay, here we go again for the last time. You know, like they really understand like this is repetitive and we need to get through it. But yeah, that scene got me. Honestly, the whole movie was incredibly entertaining.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. I think the epitome of like just a fun time at the movies.
Yep.
To me, like it's everything I want out of a popcorn. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than I don't want to sell it short of being like it's just a summer movie.
Flick,
I wouldn't say call it like a popcorn flick just because I expected to call it that, but just because of that emotional core.
Yeah.
In there,
it was beyond that.
Yeah. I will say, again, I'm going back to pre-spoilers, subversion of expectations, and we're going to the Jonathan scene where, so for me, right, you know, Chris Pine is, you know, BSing away. And again, I would have agreed with Joel. I thought everything he was saying was a lie.
Yeah.
And
it's like,
it was,
oh, my daughter,
it was
my
definitely,
dead wife.
Yeah, it was definitely shaded, you know, in his favor because he doesn't reveal that he stole the treasure, which is what caused the Red Wizard to track him down. Like it's shaded in his favor, but it was, as far as we could tell, mostly true based on the other characters.
Well, I feel like it was another exposition dump done creatively.
Where like every third sentence he's like, which I would be able to relate so much better if Counselor Jonathan were here.
Yeah.
Right. So what I was thinking was,
do we have an update on where he's at?
Right. So what I was thinking was that this counselor was going to be like some, you know, deep-seated plant that he has, you know, you know, blackmail on. And
I
like
thought this
Jonathan's going to come in there and be like, oh,
wink.
Yeah. And he's like, hello there, Jonathan. And then like, you know, approved. No, it's just Birdman coming in. Jonathan, it's so good to see you. Like push you out the window. Fly, Bird.
You have wings.
Like I thought there were machinations and complexities going on. It's just like, no, he's got wings.
and then the callbaat at the end.
Oh, that was
great. Yeah.
Really a wonderful end cap.
Jonathan. She's like so like disappointed almost in poor Jonathan.
It's like the barbarian grabbing you. Okay, this is a frail man.
Oh, Jonathan.
But also even, you know, like the start, right, where we get the orc or whatever who's brought into the prison. And it's like full on Jurassic Park loading and unloading and all this other stuff. And, you know, big, bad, scary dude.
Yeah.
And we get into the jail cell.
Yeah.
And he immediately is like, all right, fresh in prison, time to establish dominance. And then it's like,
don't mess with their potatoes,
have we met Holga here, who's just going to destroy you? Which the potato thing, all I could think of was...
Attack on Titan.
Yeah, what's her name?
Sasha.
Sasha. I was like, starts with S. It's the potatoes.
Oh man.
But we've been quoting this like all cast, right? It is a really quotable movie, which is really again in its credit as well.
It really makes me want to watch it again to like
it does
solidify the quotes in my head. Because we've been like I think he said something kind of like this. I want to know. I want to watch this a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you have enjoyed what you've heard and you want to support us more, there's one really easy way to do it. That's on Patreon.
Patreon
For $1.
Don't.
You get that's on a soundboard now. Patreon. Yeah, so our Patreon for $1 at that tier, you get access to all of our bonus episodes. And these episodes are different format than our normal episodes. These aren't just like other reviews. These are like we did a presidential fight club where we say whether or not we could beat up a president based off of solely their presidential portrait.
Yeah.
Do you want to listen to me and Ryan almost come to blows over talking about James Bond openings? You can do that.
Visceral.
I had so much fun just poking them with a stick. Get there, fight. Do a fight.
We did a soda tier list where we drank like 15 sodas and all of us
all hopped
barfed
up on Mountain Dew.
Oh, man.
That's a fun one. So yeah, $1. You get access to all of that content plus at least one bonus episode a month. Sometime we release two. Our most recent one was on how to get into Gundam.
Yep.
Gundam starter kit.
You know, if you are unfamiliar, that is a great way to learn.
Yeah.
Indeed.
All right. Other ways you can support us if you don't have $1 is you can leave us a review. So whatever podcast service you're listening to, except for Spotify.
Actually,
you can leave reviews.
You
on
can?
Spotify.
You can leave reviews on Spotify.
Breaking
However,
news.
Hold on. You can't leave a review, but you can rate it.
you can rate it, and if you
can
follow
it.
if you
Yes.
follow it,
Okay.
it actually does give us a little bit higher on
Help
the
us
on
percolate
the search.
up in the algorithms.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, reviews are good. However, it would be great if you just shared us with a friend.
Yeah. Just text somebody. Come
Tell
on.
your cat, your dog, I don't know, your
Yeah.
horse.
Send
if you
a
have a horse.
chain letter. And like, if you don't listen to 10 episodes of this podcast,
Like
bad
if you
fortune will
have a
come to you.
ham radio, you can just let us
Morse
know
code.
all the
Beep, beep, beep,
truckers.
beep, beep,
Yeah,
beep,
just,
beep,
yeah,
beep, beep.
yeah. Breaker, one night. Start talking to all the truckers. Y'all need
CB
something to listen
radio.
to on your drive? I got a podcast for you. All right, well, that sounds about like all the time we have. A huge thank you to Joel for joining us in this episode.
We really appreciate it. He was just walking down the street and we're like, you're a DM.
Snatched.
You should come be on a podcast.
Got him.
I was doing nothing and got kidnapped.
Just like old times. All right, until next time, I'm Ryan.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Steven.
And every spoiler was intended.